You are Locked On Bruins Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, man, does that suck. What a frustrating loss, man. Forza Bruin Nation, what's going on, and welcome back to the latest edition of the Locked On UCLA Postcast, coming at you live, as always, after every single UCLA football game right here, live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel, and after the fact, wherever you get the Locked On UCLA audio podcast feed. If you don't know who I am, hello, everybody. Hello, Bruin Nation. I'm Gavin Carlson, former credentialed UCLA football journalist and UCLA basketball, UCLA women's basketball, softball, all that good stuff. Back when I was a student with the Daily Bruin. So not only did I grow up a lifelong fan of this team, the son of a UCLA alum, so I'm a lifelong fan. I'm a former student who just graduated this past June, and of course I covered this team. I've been in the locker room, I've been in the press box at the Rose Bowl, I've been in the press conferences with DeShaun Foster and company, so I understand this team from every angle. And tonight, like I am the rest of my life, I am just a fan, and of course covering this team with the Locked On Network. I'm frustrated tonight because I'm going to make the argument that despite the 31-19 score, despite it being 31-13 at one point, I think UCLA should have won this game. I really do. And it's not because it was close going into the third and fourth quarter and then, there was a couple knockout blows from Washington there. No. I think UCLA should have gone into the halftime break up 2 scores maybe, instead of being down at the half. And that's what makes this one frustrating. A lot of missed opportunities and a lot of key mistakes that we will get into on this show. But before we do, as always, first and foremost, shout out to everybody in here live and everybody watching or listening after the fact. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Well over 2,000 subscribers now. Love to see it. Shout out to Pete Fox as well, holding it down on all of our other shows. But yeah, shout out to all of you in here. And shout out quickly to the sponsor of today's show. It is FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, like I said, first half, the argument I'm going to make, UCLA should have been up 2 scores at halftime. All right? Of course, you see the final score, you see UCLA wasn't really in this game, and you think they got dominated. But not only did they win in terms of total yards, not only did Garbers have a significantly better game than their quarterback, significantly better, but the turnovers were even, 2-2. So there wasn't really anything statistically that Washington did that much better than UCLA. Yes, they ran the ball better, but we've gotten used to that other than last week against Iowa. What UCLA has done on their 3-game winning streak coming into this game, and why it is so frustrating that we lost this game, because I genuinely think UCLA should be 4-0 right now, heading into the big game of the year against USC, where you're now just 1 win away from a bowl game. You can beat SC to make it 5 in a row, which means you can go into a game against Fresno State with an opportunity to end the season with 6 wins in a row. I know that's a lot of ifs, a lot of maybes, and of course it's not even a possibility now after this loss, but huge opportunity to completely flip this season around heading into the USC game. And at the end of the day, we saw the old UCLA come back multiple times. Not the UCLA we saw in this 3-game winning streak. What do I mean by that? 9 penalties for 47 yards compared to just 2 for Washington. We know how the penalties have killed this team. Lack of execution in the red zone multiple times. Turnovers, missed field goals. And eventually, the offensive line just, you can't overcome all the injuries and the combination of injuries with Garbers not being the best quarterback at knowing when to get rid of the ball. And I get it. It's hard for him. He's made a lot of heroic plays, breaking tackles, even on UCLA's touchdown drive there in the second quarter that we'll get to. Breaking tackles, lowering his shoulder, putting his body on the line. I'm not going to rip into Garbers today, but just the combination of the penalties, the lack of red zone execution, and the offensive line just having no chance because of injuries, because of the weaknesses we already have personnel-wise, sacks everywhere. It's just too much to overcome. And this was the UCLA team that we saw start the season as poorly as they did. That's the team that returned tonight. But not the whole game. In the first half, outside of a few mistakes, UCLA was better than Washington because our defense is so legit, because that front seven, because that fantastic four of Toia, Medrano, Schlesinger, and Oladejo mixed in with some athletes in the secondary. So good at times. So good at times. And multiple times they did enough to boost this offense and give this offense an opportunity to convert turnovers and good field position into scores. And it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. And that's why it felt like UCLA should have been up, not down 14-10 at halftime. They should have been up 21-3. They really should have. And I'll go by the play-by-play, tell you the key moments why. I mean, this game starts with 5 consecutive punts. So right away you can tell, kind of like Mike Tyson and Jake Paul tonight. I'm not going to talk too much about that fight, which was really a salsa class. But a lot of empty punches thrown early on with the 5 straight punts. Then the 5th punt, abysmal, goes 17 yards. Washington starts at the 36. I don't care how good your defense is. You've already forced 2 punts, but now the other team gets the ball at the 36. Surely enough, takes just 3 plays, an 18-yard pass, and then a Jonah Coleman 15-yard touchdown scamper. And just like that, it is 7-0 Washington, despite the defense being very solid. Frustrating. UCLA marches all the way down the field. And right away, our first legit drive really had some missed opportunities. The first one being 1st and 10 at the 25. Garbers has Titus wide open in the end zone, and he overthrew him by about a yard, maybe 2 feet. Frustrating. Easily could be 7-7 there. Easily. Even then, you still turn a 2nd and 10 into an 8-yard run. Quasi Gilmer. I'm going to give Eric Bieniemy a lot of credit in this game, despite the red zone failures. He drew up a lot of good plays tonight, in my opinion. Creative end-arounds, jet sweeps, getting Quasi Gilmer involved, getting Titus involved, dealing with the pressure at some point, at some points in this game. Well, this drive, the best example. UCLA gets down to 1st and 10 at the 14. A Sturdivant run. Once again, creativity, you get 5, but then Harden loses a yard. Garbers goes incomplete to Quasi Gilmer. This is missed opportunity number 2, in my opinion. This one isn't really anybody's fault, but wide open slant. I think he was throwing it to Logan Loya, actually. Gets batted down at the line of scrimmage. So you have a horrible punt that sets up a Washington touchdown that they didn't really earn at all. Just an awful punt. And then you have a missed wide open touchdown to Titus and a missed wide open touchdown to, I believe, Logan Loya that's batted down at the line of scrimmage. Frustrating. So it's 7-3. Bagani makes the kick. Should arguably be 7-7, or maybe even UCLA ahead if they didn't have a cruddy punt in the first place. But okay, it's 7-3. What does UCLA's defense do? Responds with a huge 4th down and 1 stop at midfield, gives UCLA the ball back. But what do? Get into the red zone again, love it, and then they fumble. Ethan Garbers, I don't know who to blame here. He was under pressure. He took a little bit longer than you would like, but just a clean swipe at his hand knocks the ball out. Just like that, another red zone trip that doesn't result in a touchdown. This one doesn't resolve in points. Washington has then their best drive of the game. They march down. They make it 14-3. Okay, this is going to happen in college football. Teams are going to score touchdowns. It's an offensive game, okay? And as you see, because UCLA then responds with arguably their best drive of the game, 10 plays, 65 yards. Garbers finding Titus on a huge 3rd and 6 at one point where they're sending a ton of pressure. We had a nice PI that helped us out. But then it was that 3rd and 5 run at the Washington 9. Garbers evades multiple pass rushers, breaks a tackle, lowers his shoulder, actually knocks a Washington guy out with a head to Garbers' shoulder. 1st and goal at the 1. We elect to pass the ball, which shows you how little confidence we have in our offensive line right now. But it's a touchdown. It's 14-10, and you're like, okay, should it be 14-10? No. I think UCLA should be tied at worst in this game. You got to the red zone and didn't even score, and you gifted Washington one of their touchdowns. But okay, it's 14-10 at half. You knew it was going to be a close game. Now what? Now what are we going to get? I'll tell you what we got. Elite linebacking play. Elite play from UCLA's front seven, UCLA's back end, and some pretty awful quarterbacking by Will Rogers, I will say. It takes just 2 plays for Will Rogers, 3 plays for Will Rogers to throw an interception. Kain Medrano all over the place in this game, tips the ball up, I believe. For some reason, ESPN isn't showing me who made the pick, but Rogers did have the ball tipped by Medrano, and I believe, yes, it was Kirkwood, I believe, who made the interception right away. Your defense, which has been carrying you for most of the year, for the most part, gets the job done. Gives you a turnover right after halftime. Exactly what you need. Exactly what you need. Thank you, defense. How do we respond? How do you respond to getting the ball at the 25? How about you get 3 yards thanks to a 3rd down sack and you kick another field goal? You didn't even get a first down. You didn't even gain 5 yards on the drive. So your defense does all that work, gets a pick right away, puts you right in business, you blow it. You only get 3. You're still losing somehow. But okay, it's 14-13. You're feeling good about your defense. Then what do? Another interception. Feeling really good about your defense. Back-to-back picks. Medrano, you're a stud. Schlesinger's a stud. Oladejo's a stud. We didn't even get into that BS roughing the passer call on Oladejo that gifted Washington a 2nd touchdown. I don't want to talk about it. It wasn't a roughing the passer, but whatever. Moral of the story is the defense did its job. Back-to-back interceptions. But not only do you only get a field goal after the first one at the 25, UCLA starts at the Washington 39, and then Peterson fumbles. And you get nothing. So you're inside the 30 5 times already. 5 times. And you've got 1 touchdown, 2 field goals, and 2 fumbles. 1 touchdown in 5 trips inside the 30-yard line. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Washington goes and gets a field goal, 17-13. What does UCLA do? They get all the way to, you guessed it, inside the Washington 30. To the 26, 3rd and 7, incomplete, frustrating. It was a 1st and 15. You turned it into a 3rd and 7. You couldn't get it done. Okay, 44-yard field goal to cut it to an 8-point game. No good. So now make that 6 trips inside the 30. 6 trips. 2 made field goals, 1 missed field goal, 2 fumbles, and a touchdown. So still, 1 for 6 now in terms of touchdowns inside the 30, and only 3 for 6 in terms of even scoring points inside the 30. And none of those 6 trips was going for it on 4th down, 4th and 1 at the goal line or something and getting stuffed, where that's a frustrating one, but it's different. No, 2 missed kicks that should have been made and 2 fumbles. That can't happen. That can't happen. And so that, my friends, is why UCLA should have won this game. If you go even 3 for 6 in terms of turning those trips inside the 30 to touchdowns, 3 for 6, you got 21 points right there. You only scored 19 for the game. Frustrating. Not to mention, gifting Washington one of its touchdowns with a horrible punt. Gifting them their 2nd touchdown with an interception taken off the board because of a terrible roughing the passing call. Not to mention, your defense gets 2 picks and you do nothing with it, and then they go to the backup QB, who's Kyler Murray Jr., running all over the place, and they're able to score a couple touchdowns late, and then it's over because your defense did all it could. The defense was Mike Tyson tonight. Sorry for all the references, but the defense was Mike Tyson tonight. Landing a couple jabs. I mean, I don't even know if Mike Tyson did that, to be honest, but landing a couple jabs with those interceptions, staying in the fight, and then they ran out of gas. But honestly, the offense was Mike Tyson, and the defense was Mike Tyson if he actually showed up. Landing a couple jabs but running out of gas, that's what the defense did. A couple blows, for sure. Whereas UCLA's offense barely got a couple jabs in and then just collapsed. So frustrating. You go down 31-13 at one point, but it felt like you should have won this game. I'm still going to go out and make that statement. That it felt like you took the energy out of that stadium where Washington normally has it rocking. You took it out of the stadium because you kept it close early. You had back-to-back picks to start the second half. All the momentum's on your side. And like my friend I was watching the game with said, you got 2 interceptions in the 3rd quarter, and it's 3-3 in the quarter. How does that happen? You picked them off twice, and you don't even gain a point on them in the 3rd quarter. That can't happen. It cannot happen. And that's why UCLA has their 3-game streak snapped. They fall to 4-6, 3-5 in the Big Ten. And now they got to run the table their last 2 games against SC, of course, and Fresno State to make it to that bowl game in year 1 with DeShaun Foster. When we come back from our first break here on the postcast, we'll give the defense a little more credit. We'll also talk a little bit more about the offensive line. We didn't really get into that. A couple injuries that contributed to Garbers getting sacked a bunch. Garbers also making some mistakes as well that contributed to that. We'll grade the coaching performances of Bieniemy and Malloy and DeShaun Foster, the lack of discipline with this team. We referenced it a little bit with the penalties. And we'll also look forward to that SC game. Oh, you know we will. We'll do all that after our first and second breaks here on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. We'll be right back. Now, today's show is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Yes, that's right. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently delivered the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off statewide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Yes, it may. We'll be right back. Back here live on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. This is the Locked On UCLA Postcast. Back here live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. Once again, if you don't know who I am, I'm Gavin Carlson, former credentialed UCLA football journalist with the Daily Bruin. Recent alum, just graduated, lifelong fan, now a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Bruins fall 31-19 in Seattle against the Washington Huskies in a Big Ten battle in 2024. Of course, a lifelong Pac-12 or Pac-10 battle between these two schools. Once again, if you didn't watch the first 15 minutes for some reason, I told you many, many times why UCLA honestly deserved to win this game if it wasn't for key mistakes, going 1 for 6 inside the 30 in terms of scoring touchdowns, just 3 for 6 in terms of even scoring points. And despite outgaining the Huskies, despite having the same amount of turnovers, despite Garbers certainly outplaying both of their quarterbacks, the Bruins fall and have their 3-game winning streak snapped. It's a frustrating loss. We talked a little bit, or not a little bit, we broke down the failure inside the 30 for the offense and the key plays that set up Washington multiple times. We're going to talk about the offensive line a little bit. The left tackle, Jeffers, goes down. That hurts. Then we also lose the additional offensive lineman. So on the right side, so UCLA's offensive line, we knew it was already banged up coming in. We know it's been really bad all year. We know we turned things around, at least in terms of the run game in the past 3 games, specifically that Iowa game where we kind of turned all narratives upside down. Iowa's red-hot run defense couldn't stop T.J. Harden and company for UCLA. Not to mention UCLA's defense did the opposite and shut down Iowa's running attack. But yeah, the offensive line was really picking up momentum. Despite not being fully healthy, despite still not being a great pass-blocking unit, but today weren't able to get anything done in the run game, just 52 rushing yards on 33 attempts. That's awful. 1.6 yards per carry for UCLA. I mean, but let's be honest, the huge reason that is because, oh yeah, you got sacked an absurd 6 times. 6 times. Ethan Garbers is sacked in this one. Really frustrating. I mean, that I don't really know what else to say. You get sacked 6 times, you're never going to have a nice statistical game running the football, but you're never going to have a good game as is. Of course, one of those sacks resulted in a fumble when UCLA was in the red zone, so that hurts. But the moral of the story is Garbers goes 27 for 44, 267, and 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns came when the game was already over, and we needed 1 or 2 more of those touchdowns early in the game when you're inside the 30. I thought Garbers was okay. Once again, you get sacked 6 times, you're getting hit on every play, you're evading pressure every play. UCLA's their second quarter touchdown, like I said, their only touchdown of the game, that is, besides the fourth quarter drive, was because Garbers evaded pressure and turned a near sack into a first down. So you got to give him credit when he does stuff like that. But a couple missed throws today, I'll be honest, and I'm a Garbers defender. We talked about the Titus miss. We talked about that second miss that was batted down, but a couple of throws that should have been intercepted, a couple of throws that he missed wide open guys, held on to the ball too long multiple times where he did take sacks. So kind of one of those things where Garbers has been asked to be a hero for most of this year, and when he's not, he's not an elite quarterback. I think he's an above average quarterback, but when you're asking him to be Pat Mahomes every week, and he's not actually Pat Mahomes, every once in a while you're going to have a game like this where statistically it looks okay, but he wasn't good enough. Not to mention the run game, like I said, is terrible in this one. But the moral of the story is Garbers sacked 6 times. That does not help any rushing stat, not to mention the offensive line, banged up, looked even worse as the game went on with the injuries, and just really couldn't get anything going. Big game for Maliki Mataval, 7 for 68. TJ Harden, 6 catches for 79 yards, including a 25-yarder. Titus, I thought, was very good. Only 3 catches, but couple big ones on third down. Jack Peterson, 3 for 37, but the huge fumble. And once again, the storyline I'm going to keep talking about, why in the world does J.Michael Sturdivant just do cardio out there? Bro just never contributes. It's so frustrating. Way too talented to have 1 catch for 6 yards and 1 carry for 5 yards. It's ridiculous. I thought Quasi Gilmore had a good game. Obviously, he caught the touchdown. Good game in terms of, I like that they're starting to get him involved. But the main thing here is that Garbers missed Titus on a big touchdown, and then you have the huge Peterson fumble, the Garbers fumble. We talked about it ad nauseum at this point. A lot of missed opportunities. The last thing I will say before we take this last break here is the penalties. I'm starting to look at DeShaun Foster a little bit, I'll be honest, because when one of your 3 core tenets is discipline, and you continue to kill yourself with penalties, you have to be critical. Like I said, I thought Bieniemy coached a good game for the most part in terms of the play calling. He did about as much as he could. I think he got a little bit worse in the second half, but it's no coincidence that the offensive line gets more banged up. Washington, that came into 3 straight games without a sack or something and has 6 sacks, at the end of the day, the offensive coordinator can't really do a lot there. The defensive coordinator, you drew up a good 3 quarters. You forced 2 interceptions. You were managing their run and pass game for most of the game until the fourth quarter. You give up those 2 touchdowns. I think both coordinators did okay, but the 9 penalties, that comes down to the head coach, whose job is not to call plays on either side, but is to be the culture setter. And one of your 3 core tenets is discipline, and you have 9 penalties. Not good. Not good. So a little critical there on DeShaun Foster front. And then, the penalties, the injuries, the O-line, the lack of execution inside the 30, it's all going to kill you. It's too many things to overcome and still win a football game. And that's why, despite outplaying Washington for most of this game, you still weren't even in it going into the last 10 or so minutes of the fourth quarter. So, once again, UCLA falls 31-19, really outplayed Washington for, I think, 3 quarters, and yet never really were in it in the fourth. Really, really frustrating. When we come back from our last break, we'll look ahead to the biggest game of the year, whether you're 1-6 or 6-1 or 10-1 or 1-10. When UCLA plays USC, it's the biggest game of the year. So we're going to talk about it after our last break here on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. Now, finally, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Yes, that's right. Get ready to tackle the football action, the NFL action, all that good stuff with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Back here live one more time on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. I'm Gavin Carlson. This is the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel, all a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, as much as we want to keep being frustrated about this game, it's still a 4-game streak for UCLA where you're 3-1, okay? And you still, despite starting the season 1-5, still go into the SC week with an opportunity to win a bowl game. And USC still sucks, and they are extremely disappointing this year. They made a QB change. We'll see how that affects things this week for them as they take on Nebraska. I think we'll learn a lot about what this UCLA-USC game could be because UCLA beat Nebraska. And I know we knocked out Dylan Raiola in that game, and I know Dylan Raiola is back against USC. But if Nebraska beats SC at USC, I think you got to make UCLA a favorite at the Rose Bowl. I mean, a 1-point favorite. Both of these teams are not very good, but for UCLA, it's a couple clear issues. Offensive line, inconsistency with the run game, and then the lack of discipline and the penalties. For SC, it's just like they're just not really great at anything, right? You came into the year thinking they were going to have an electric offense with, as always, under Lincoln Riley with a little bit better of a defense, right? But you just lost to Washington. You lost a tight one to Maryland, a tight one to Penn State, a tight one to Minnesota, a tight one to Michigan. All their games are close, I get it. And you still have an impressive win against LSU. You still have an impressive loss in the sense that you outplayed Penn State for most of the game. Of course, USC is going to be more talented, and you still probably give USC the coaching edge. But at the Rose Bowl, it's a coin toss game every time these teams play. It always is. I mean, DTR, we know what he did to SC. We know what Ethan Garbers did to USC last year against Caleb. We know what Caleb did to DTR at the Rose Bowl when it was the biggest matchup of all of them. In my opinion, it feels like in this rivalry, when both teams are elite, other than that year where Anthony Barr was drilling Matt Barkley and whatnot, it feels like when both teams are elite, and this is just me talking off the top of my head as someone who's followed UCLA, it feels like when both teams are elite, USC has the edge. It feels like when both teams are underwhelming, UCLA has the edge. And this is certainly one of those years where both teams are underwhelming, just like last year. And yeah, UCLA put the beat down on USC last year. Maybe it's because the expectations are higher at USC, and so when they underperform, there's more noise, there's more pressure on the coach. But come on, let's be honest. Last year, Chip Kelly, we were calling for his job, and we went in there and destroyed Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. We destroyed him. So if we won this game, I'm certainly picking UCLA against USC. I think we're coming in with all sorts of confidence, whereas SC's coming in stumbling. It's at the Rose Bowl. UCLA fans need to be impressed in order to show up for most games, not for USC. But I think if UCLA fans come in to next week knowing we've won 5 in a row, or 4 in a row, an opportunity to make it 5 in a row against USC, clinch a bowl game at the Rose Bowl against SC, I think we're packing the place. Right? I think we are. And so I think the fan ratio will be 60-40 UCLA next Saturday. Maybe it'll be 50-50 exactly. I don't know. What I don't want, regardless of if it's USC or UCLA, is I don't want empty seats. I always say it. I would rather have it be 60-40 USC, but full, than 60-40 UCLA, but empty seats. This rivalry still is the best in terms of uniforms. It's still the best in terms of tradition, in terms of hatred for each other, in terms of cross-town rivalry. There's not many of those in college football. So I want a full Rose Bowl. I will be there. I'm going to be tailgating with my college friends that are still there, some of my college friends that graduated like me. It's always an experience, always an event when UCLA plays USC. And I don't want our losing record and their potential losing record to rain on that parade. I want it to be full. I want it to be a close affair. I don't want it to be close. I want UCLA to kick their butt. But I want it to be close in terms of both teams thinking they can win, both teams showing up, packing the Rose Bowl. We know how electric the Rose Bowl is when it is full, and how beautiful and how historic it is when it is full. So fill the Rose Bowl. UCLA win. If I had to put my life savings on it right now, I unfortunately do think I give USC a slight edge just because it didn't feel like UCLA just lost this game. It felt like they got punched in the mouth tonight. You lose a couple offensive linemen. You take a huge step back in terms of the run game. There's a little bit of uncertainty about Garbers' decision-making. We do see a little bit of weakness in terms of UCLA's ability to handle some speed defensively, handle the speed of the Washington quarterback, of some of the Washington skill positions. So we know SC has a lot of speed. We'll see what their new quarterback looks like. But if USC loses to Nebraska, I'm instantly changing my mind, because UCLA coming off a loss to Washington is just step back, but still, been positive vibes the last couple of weeks. Whereas if USC loses to Nebraska, that is 5 losses in their last 6. Only one of those losses being against a ranked team, versus all of our losses came against ranked teams. So we know how it is at SC. They lose to Nebraska, they're calling for Lincoln Riley's head, and this game at the Rose Bowl becomes a Lincoln Riley potentially fighting for his job type of game. And with that type of pressure and that type of storyline, we know USC. We know they don't know how to handle that. Give me the Bruins in that case. So, of course, we're rooting Nebraska on tomorrow, and if Nebraska wins, I really do think it helps UCLA's chances of beating the Trojans. Skill-wise, talent-wise, SC gets the edge. Coaching-wise, I think just slightly in terms of X's and O's, SC gets the edge. But in terms of if DeShaun Foster can turn the discipline around, if we could just turn those red zone trips into touchdowns, of course we can beat SC. It's going to be a coin flip game. Every little thing matters. UCLA getting a couple offensive linemen back matters. SC losing tomorrow matters. It all matters. It being 60-40 in the crowd in favor of UCLA instead of 40-60 matters. It all matters. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be. It always is with this rivalry. It's always a coin toss in terms of who is going to win this game. So I'm excited. I will be there. I know a lot of people have been asking me, when will you be at a game again so we can meet you or whatever. I will be at the game. I'll be tailgating with the Den, which is the student section club that I was a part of. So yes, I'll be at the game. We're going to figure out how I'm going to do the show. I might do it from the stadium directly after the game, because the last thing I want to do is have to leave the game early when it's a close game. I might see if I have a friend who lives in Pasadena where I can race to his house after the game ends. I don't know. We're going to figure it out. But either way, I'm going to the game. I don't want to have to leave the game early. So we might be doing the show from the parking lot. I'll be honest. We're going to figure it all out. But with all that being said, if you had to put my life savings on it, I think I give the slight edge to USC, as much as I hate to say it. It shows you that I'm being unbiased, though. Slight edge to SC, but it can change. And if we get some good news on the injury front for offensive line, and if SC looks like a team with no control tomorrow against Nebraska, I'll flip my decision and give it to UCLA and give it to our beloved Bruins. But with all that being said, we're going to wrap this one up. I am very tired, I'll be honest. I've got my eyes closing as we speak. It's been a long night. It's almost 11. These late Friday night games are brutal. It's going to be even later next week, 7:30 kickoff, which is ridiculous. I don't care if these teams are struggling. This rivalry matters too much for it to be at 7:30. That's another rant for another day. But with all that being said, shout out to everybody in here watching this one live. Shout out to everybody watching it after the fact. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment in the comment section, will UCLA beat SC next week? That is the question. But with all that being said, I'm Gavin Carlson signing off, saying thanks so much for watching. And as always, go Bruins, 4's up, and even after a loss, I'm going to do it because it's now SC week. Just like that, it's officially SC week, so I'm still going to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. I've got the shirt. Go Bruins. Come on. Beat SC next week. Bruins fall 31-19, but I'm already thinking about those Trojans. Let's go beat them. Let's go beat them. So long, everybody. Have a great weekend. Go Nebraska tomorrow.